Welcome everyone to today's program. I am Tamara Rosen with Becker's Healthcare. The program will begin with a presentation and we will have a question and answer session following its completion. You can submit any questions you have throughout the program by typing them into your control panel in the space labeled Enter a Question for Staff and clicking Send. Our presenters will attempt to answer as many questions as they can during this time. You will receive an email within about a week following the webinar that will include instructions for how you can download a copy of the presentation. You will also receive a follow-up email shortly after completion of the program. You can submit your feedback or any additional questions at that time. This email will not include the presentation. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's presenters. Tony Rich works in global programs and segments healthcare with Unify. Prior to Unify, Tony was a healthcare transformation consultant with over 10 years experience as an interim director and CIO at numerous NHS trusts in acute and primary care, driving strategic turnaround programs. He has also been closely involved in many award-winning global healthcare innovations for a variety of overseas organizations involving communications, RFID, social media, and other technologies. Tony is also one of the founding members of the Health Transformation Project in the United States and an active mentor for healthcare managers through various charitable and professional bodies. Andrew Cheel has spent the last 29 years working inside the ICT industry, during which he has seen his fair share of technology deployment projects that were intended to solve organization ills. Regrettably, this vision seldom became a complete reality, not necessarily because the technology was oversold or underperformed, but because the target audience, the user population, resisted the opportunity to evolve their working practices in line with their new tool sets. Over the last 5 years, Andrew spent much of his time researching the many facets that make up the successful IT project, paying particular attention to the alignment between the promises associated with unified communications and, more recently, the new ways to work versus the reality from a user's and organizational point of view. It is now my pleasure to turn the floor over to Tony to begin today's presentation.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. We're here in the UK, so sort of getting late in the afternoon for us, but welcome. So first of all, let's just introduce you to Unify, for those that have not come across us before. We are a premier provider of enterprise communication solutions. We're number 2 globally, number 1 in Europe, ranked as a market leader by analysts such as Gartner, and trusted by over 75% of the Fortune 500, with over 15,000 healthcare implementations sort of under our belt. So what we want to do today is talk about innovation, talk about how that innovation, especially within the communications environment, can actually help enable better quality care outcomes, increased efficiency within the healthcare environment. So as you can see, sort of the slide that we have in front of us, we've been around in some form or other for about 150 years. Not me personally, nor Andrew, but sort of the company. In the last the first 140 years, things moved along, things progressed, and we saw the evolution of the telephones as we know it today, evolving into corporate beasts and contact centers. And then what you see around the 2007, 2008, through to currently, is a rapid change of growth and technology. New things came along like Twitter and social media, all the way through to 2016, where Unify as a company continues to evolve and deliver into that industry. So how is life changing? Well, let's just look at some of the other industries and how that aligns to healthcare. And the first one I'm just going to pick on is the airline industry. Especially in the US, we travel a lot, we use flights. It used to be ticketed. We used to go to a desk and they used to stamp our ticket, and then we'd show the ticket several occasions. Now, we just get a simple email. We even check our own bags. We don't see half the people that used to exist even 10, 15 years ago. In addition to that, this technology, which is now part of our holiday experience or business travel experience, and we get upset when we can't actually do it, has driven massive economy savings within those industries. Think about all the people that and the processes that have changed just so that now we can actually put a ticket on our bag and put it on the conveyor belt and then walk through security. And we only see maybe one person or two at the most. So does that really apply to the way we work today? So we undertook a recent study of over 9,000 knowledge workers across all industries, including healthcare, in 3 main regions, the UK, the US, and Germany. We looked at those work patterns. We explored the behaviors and then what the attitudes were towards the workplace and each other, i.e. those of us that work with the other. And some of the sort of highlight outcomes. 92% of people felt they put a positive contribution into the way that they worked. 79% had an opportunity to express ideas, and 73% felt that they were listened to within the organization they worked. But the interesting stats are that 35% believed that their roles would not exist anymore within 5 years. And 65% said it's definitely going to be different, it's going to have changed. More to the point, 74% of those interviewed revealed that technology, especially digital technology, with social media, was going to absolutely change the way that they worked and the way that they had to behave in the workplace. And certainly we're going to show you later on exactly how that's affected us within the Unify environment. And what about that technology? The biggest form or most essential form of communications today was identified as being email. But it's interesting that it's actually the most hated tool that we use today. 28% actually went as far as to say they don't want to see email anymore. It's clear that on-demand tools and the cloud is on the increase, and 20% of people think they don't have the right tools to use today in their jobs. And that spread of percentages and questions was fairly balanced across all industries, including healthcare. So how about healthcare? How is that evolving? So the healthcare industry that we're seeing today is consolidating. Like many other industries, we're now seeing the merger of hospitals, big brands, as well as small providers being consolidated by the larger. We're seeing a lot of new market players coming into the market. These sort of players are providing very consumerized type services. You could look at something like Walmart, who now provide pharmacy services and actually are now starting to do small sort of consultation type services. Technology is evolving at the fastest pace I've ever seen it, both within medical equipment and within the technologies that we use to do our day-to-day jobs. Consumerization is changing attitudes. We now expect our employers to give us tools and apps as quickly as I can go onto an app store and download them. The Internet of Things and the Internet of Healthy Things is definitely growing. And a recent study showed that they expect there to be over 23 billion different Internet of Thing items by 2020. Patients, or should we call them customers, are expecting higher and higher levels of service. No longer are we accepting the fact that we turn up and somebody sort of cures our ailment. We now expect to have good customer service with it. And then the dreaded regulation and penalties for non-compliance is on the increase. In the US, we're now seeing HCATs and penalties leveled against those HCATs, which can exceed over $1 million at a time. But the one thing that I've noticed throughout my career, even in my time in healthcare, is to deliver effective quality care requires that team effort. And that team needs to be able to communicate and collaborate at the right time in an effective and efficient manner. I recently sat down with a bunch of nurses and actually from multiple disciplinary teams, and actually we quizzed each other. What was the biggest barrier? And the biggest barrier was the email and the other sorts of tools that we use today, because it's replaced that sitting around the table having that conversation about a patient. And what does that team include? Well, it's the organizations that provide the care, it's the care professionals within those organizations, the back-of-house services that ensure the smooth flowing of the infrastructure and everything around it, the front-of-house services that are actually involved in sort of face-to-face care and care delivery. Then there's the back office, i.e. the administrative functions, and of course, let's not forget the patients as well. So if we actually take a look at some of those industries that we've been involved in, that have gone through this pain already, let's just see if there's anything that aligns to healthcare. So the airline industry, the first one I picked on earlier, it really had problems around sort of overbooking of aeroplanes. We used to get lots of free flights and benefits because the seats were full. That doesn't happen so much now. They had to reduce costs, and that was one of the ways they got around it. However, in healthcare, budget pressures reduce the cost of care. Very similar drivers. Then the management of resource needed to become more effective in the airline industry. Well, the equivalent in healthcare is reduce the length of stay whilst improving outcomes. In other words, a better end product. Resolve utilization by overbooking in the travel industry equals reduced outpatients for the same reason. Overbooking of outpatient clinics causes overruns. But you need to retain those customers. And to retain the customer is about giving them a better experience. And if we look at any industry, we always go back to our preferred supplier because of the experience. It's rarely because of the product, because there's plenty of people to supply that product. And if we look at the healthcare equivalent, that patient or customer experience results in improved HCAPs, which reduces those penalties. And lastly, the improvement of the brand of the organization. Brand is becoming key. In the US, brand is very key in healthcare, not so in other countries. And in healthcare, that's got to become the provider of care of choice, both to the patient and to the insurer. Let's have a look at manufacturing. Manufacturing, the auto industry, has gone from hand-built cars now through to cars that really see no human being until they literally reach the showroom and somebody starts polishing the car before we buy it. They had to reduce costs to market. Well, it's the same as reducing the cost of care delivery. Managing resource more effectively, they did that through automation. Well, we need to make carers more effective rather than necessarily automating them, and that means giving them back more time to care. The improved productivity that came through automation where applicable in the manufacturing industry was almost up to over 90% in many industries. Whereas automating in healthcare, I don't think we're going to be able to put a patient on a conveyor belt and see them come out the other end cured sort of any day soon. But there are elements that we can automate, and we can do that without dehumanizing the service. Then you get to sort of the brand elements. Manufacturing needed to attract even more higher caliber staff. No different in healthcare. Need that high quality staff because that then sort of attracts more revenue. And they needed to innovate to survive. And innovation now is becoming the key to sort of modern care delivery. And then if we look at that last one, the corporate area, sort of thing, it exists in all organizations, back office administration, sort of we all need to reduce that cost. And we're even now starting to see the evidence that some of those typical sort of back office functions are now starting to cease to exist within organizations. Reduction of estate, not so easy within healthcare. So the alternative there is increase the estate utilization, maximize what part of the estate can generate revenue, and reduce the areas that are used that don't generate revenue. And then we're seeing in corporate the outsourcing of non-core business functions. Well, in healthcare, we need to find new ways to improve and grow internal services, and that may be an option. So where does communications fit in? Well, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at Unify. We're going to talk to you a little bit about how we changed the way we worked. And those benefits included reduction of real estate by enabling virtual working. Both Andrew and myself, our office desk is in our home. We come into the office when we need to, and we find a hot desk that's available, or we book a hot desk like a meeting room. It's reduced a lot of time wastage as well by knowing when I can and can't communicate with someone. I no longer leave messages or make repeated phone calls. I just know when I can talk to Andrew, and we're going to show you how that happens in a minute. Virtual meetings reduces time wastage and reduces cost, both on travel and time, and having a single extensible environment to maximize the investment that's been built in technology already. Let's not just keep ripping and replacing. So everything we do and all the new tools that we put onto our desktops or onto our mobile devices all leverage our existing investment. So before we move on to where communications fit into health, I'm going to ask Emma to switch over to Andrew, and we're going to show you how we actually sort of use some of our tools in our own job today. Emma, can you switch over?
Okay, she's done it.
Thank you.
So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As Tony's already said, my name's Andrew Chill, and I've been working with sort of unified communications for about the last 13, 14 years. And initially, it was a technology that was looking for a problem, but now it is definitely a technology that's there to solve the very real problems. What you're seeing hopefully on your screen now is a mobile client, which is running on a tablet device. So obviously that's a device I can carry around with me. The tablet device has both Wi-Fi and a mobile component into there, so I'm always connected. And what you can see is a call journal. So I can see who's called me and who I've tried to call in any moment in time, just like you can on your mobile phone. But these are all people that have called my one number. That's a number that's been issued to me by an organization. So I don't need multiple devices. I just need a particular device with an application that runs on it that's designed to run on a mobile device. And I can then, at a glance, see who's called and who hasn't. You can see that I've made a call. At the top of my list, I've got Tony in here, and I've made a call to him, and there's a red X by it. So I've obviously attempted to call him and missed him. Okay. If I go to contacts in this list, I have a whole group of contacts. You can see here I've got on-call doctors, I've got sales dispensary. There's a whole raft of groups of people. If I select the on-call doctors, you can see by the number that there's 5 people within that group. And if I select the group, okay, you can see there are the 5 people. One of those people is in Tony. I can actually get to see that he's online, okay, and if I need to call him, I can just click the button, okay, it comes up with these details, so now I get an option of how I contact him, whether I send him a text message or whether I actually call him. But if we're in healthcare, typically I want to speak to someone. So I will click the button, his number, and now I get a list of how do I want to call. I'm going to say I want to call him via this device, so I select mobile, and now you can see that I've got a call window coming up. Okay, the call is the system is now ringing Tony, and when Tony answers, you'll see that I'm now established in a call. Okay, Now, because I'm on a mobile device and I've got network connectivity, which is Wi-Fi, I've now got the ability to induce video as well. So again, if I'm on my tablet, yes, it could be a picture of me being streamed to Tony, but it could actually be a patient or someone that I want a second opinion with. You saw on the screen there flash up where there was network connectivity. So Tony's actually got his mobile device is connected via a 3G network, and it's just alerting me to the fact that, yeah, the network connectivity at the other end is not necessarily good. I also get the ability to be able to move the call from one device to another. Simply by clicking the move button, I can now move across multiple devices, okay, and as soon as I let my finger off, it will transfer the call automatically from my tablet device to maybe a phone at the sort of main desk within a hospital ward or somewhere where there's a hot desk phone. So again, I get the ability to be able to move around very, very quickly. Okay, I'll end that call as we've sort of given you a very quick demonstration for that. I've also got the ability to be able to start conferences. So these are things, maybe a crash team or maybe an advice team, or it could actually be a patient that I'm actually working with where I need bed management involved. Again, I've pre-got that list available, and I can scroll down, pick a particular group. Let's pick this one, P1 escalation. Here's a number of people in there. And again, if I click on Start Conference, it will automatically ring those two other people and bring them into a conference with me. So again, not only am I seeing the present status of some individuals, I'm actually able to either chat to them or be able to bring them into a real-time conference call, just using an iPad, which is a multifunctional device. So with that, I'll hand back to Tony. We will come back for another demonstration of how you socially collaborate with people on a ongoing period, so over a period of time, but then you can always refer back to those, to the notes that you've portrayed over that period of time for lessons learned and things like that. So Emma, if you could transfer the screen back to Tony, I'd be really grateful.
Thank you, Emma. So you've seen how we've adapted and the sort of tools that we're using today in our everyday life. And it does make our lives a lot easier. But where does it fit into health? So we've shown you the basic tools. We've shown you nothing more than basic tools. And that basic tool can give doctors and nurses more time to care. So the first thing we've done with this technology is we've taken away the handcuff that keeps you stuck to a particular device. So you're no longer device dependent. This means you can start using your own devices if your organization allows you. So I actually use my own mobile phone. I also use my home phone because I live in an area where communications is not great. So when I'm actually in my home office, I actually set my preferred device to being my home phone number. So if we can actually decouple ourselves from the device, it starts to open up a lot of possibilities. And some of those possibilities are so simple that they generate real benefits. So what we're going to show you now is what we call the mobile baton. Think about a relay race. And that relay race starts at the end of a shift, maybe just before, just after. And everybody that has an on-call phone starts the race at a different point in the building, and the person chasing them wants to go on call, but they've got to find the person first. And you think that once they've found that person, the race is finished. But actually, what happens when the battery dies halfway through shift? So what we're going to show you now is how this technology can resolve all those problems, resolve the admin that sits at switchboard when a phone and a device has to be changed mid-shift, and sort of basically returns all those minutes back to time to care for both nurses and doctors who do an on-call rota. So if we could swap back screens, please.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So what you're seeing on the screen now is, again, a software that's accessed through a browser. And what I am is I'm an administrator, and I've got the task of being able to manage the resource. So in the slide that Tony showed you, there were a number of people, all that would share the on-call rota. Now, Barbara, who was the lady that was on call, she now comes off shift and she hands over to Ned. Okay, so and the way this is done is the role of on-call doctor has the number. That number is not assigned to an individual, it's assigned to a role. And with what Tony said is, underneath that role, we can put multiple devices. So Barbara had her mobile number or her desk phone number that was assigned to that role number. Okay, now she's gone off shift and now Ned needs to take over that role, but he's on his mobile. So what the administrator does, very simply, is they click on here, you can see the title work phone. And basically, what we do is we click over, we find Ned in the list, okay, and associated to Ned is his mobile number. And we just click that button, the administrator just clicks that button, and then anyone who calls the one number that gets rerouted to Ned's mobile phone. Now Ned's done a 4-hour shift of an 8 or 9 hour day, okay, and he's not feeling too good, so basically needs to stand down and go and recover. So now during mid-shift we need to change that button once again, and again the administrator could do it or the individual themselves. Okay, what they do is they access the roll number, okay, and then they would hand it over, in this case, to Robinson. And again, anyone who calls the on-call number, all calls will not get routed through to Ned, they'll get routed through to Robinson. And that is how it works. I'll show you underneath this, if you go to device settings here in the window, you could see all of the phone numbers that are sitting behind this role. And again, if I ever needed to change any of them, so like Barbara lost her phone or needed to change her number, okay, it's very simple. I go in and I can edit this number very, very quickly. So I can do it all in live real time, and I don't need to create a logistic problem. I can do all this remotely. Okay, back to you then, Tony.
Thank you, Emma. So as we've seen, we've now just eliminated all of that relay race around the hospital for not just one on-call phone, but for several. Now that adds up to minutes a day, hours a week, maybe more, to the point where significant time is returned to patient care for all concerned. So what we're saying is, it's time to collaborate back, just as we used to, around the table, in a real conversation, with everything being up to date, knowing who's available, totally mobile, and as we said, it can be any device. So if we can't lay our hands on anything else, we use our own personal device. But what about that patient experience? This is good for the staff, but what about the patient? I always sort of equate sort of hospitals and hotels. And would I stay in a hotel if I turned up at the reception desk and they sort of, once I'd given them my name, they said, well, why are you here? It happens occasionally, but would I go back to that hotel? So why shouldn't it be the same for the patient? And does your patient participate in hospital operations, as in not the surgical operation, but the running of the hospital? using this technology, you can get them to participate. One of the most recent innovative ways I've seen this happen was around infection control. They used to, a hospital in the UK now pushes alerts to the patient via their preferred device and actually asks them a couple of simple questions such as, have you seen all the nurses and all the doctors wash their hands before they treated you? And in one hospital, which I won't name, there was one ward where it got a 90% no. What it actually turned out was it wasn't anything other than they couldn't see the sink where the doctors and nurses went to wash their hands. So they put a mirror up, and patient satisfaction and engagement increased. Simple good practice, simple real-time application can actually result in a better patient experience. But this goes bigger. Let's actually look at how we engage those thousands of patients that are out there. And one of those easy ones is contact center. It provides a single point of contact for your organization. So now we know what number to dial. It can then help deliver many services, such as an appointment bureau, all the way through to a telehealth-based consultation between professionals or professional to patient. It utilizes a common look and feel to the rest of our personal tools. And as we'll see in a minute, we'll show you how the contact center looks and feels just like the tools that Andrew's already shown you. It ensures that the calls are handled by those that have got the correct skills to answer that call. So a call that comes in for a catering will go to somebody that has got the skills to answer and handle a catering call, whereas an appointment call will go through to somebody that can answer that. Slowly you can multi-skill these people up so they can actually handle more calls, and therefore you become more effective. It allows you to effectively manage periods of high demand because you can see the business analytics that comes out of it shows you what are the peak times and actually allows you to sort of man up or reroute some certain calls, prioritize calls to sort of handle that. And then you can start automating some of those functions, such as booking and cancellation of appointments. Do I need to talk to somebody to say I can't attend, or can I actually just respond to an automated line for that option? The growth of specialist services is absolutely on the increase, and Contact Center enables these services. As you see the growth of remote consultation services, these can both be revenue earning and also sort of good for condition management and supporting patients post-discharge. So let's have a quick look at Contact Center. As you can see from the screenshots, sort of very similar look and feel to what you've already seen. It shows the presence of the specialists. It actually sort of allows us to sort of include chat, video, and bring together those conference facilities, just like you've already seen with Andrew's demo already. So when a consultant happens to be somebody that's actually either on the contact center or is a point of contact for a conference call, they know how to use the tools because they're using them already. So let's have a look at some of the other industries that we've worked in and where those industries can actually play a part. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the finance industry. You wouldn't think that that related to patient care and patient delivery. So our Openscape expert platform was designed for the trading floor. And the main reason for that is because it can handle multiple types of calls across different types of media at a very fast pace. It already plays a major role in command and control 911 services in the US. And we're seeing a growth of that in other areas. I'm going to use a UK example here initially. Birmingham Children's Hospital are paediatric specialists for the central region of the UK. Basically, that's an area north of London, all the way up to what we call the Pennine Belt, which is sort of Manchester and Leeds, so a big geographic area. They do all the paediatric consultations and specialist services for paediatrics and have consultants needing to jump onto conference calls to support air ambulances, other hospitals that have pediatric issues all the time. And they use this platform for exactly that need. So they only have 3 staff in that contact center, but each of those staff are continually managing multiple specialist conference calls with those pediatricians. If we look at other services in the US that are using this, we have several sort of healthcare providers and local state authorities who now use this platform for dispatching emergency services. And one good example is Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas, who are using that as an add-on to their contact center and have integrated it to radio to improve that emergency service and dispatch solution. Other industries, so I kept talking about manufacturing earlier. So our Openscape alarm and response solution deals with anything that you can automate that you want to take the human element out of the equation for speed. So let's not dehumanize, but specialist alert services. Hospitals are now using this platform to alert specialists when a certain patient or patient type is admitted into ER. As an example, somebody who is still being treated for a recent stroke, who's been admitted for a road traffic accident, the stroke specialist would like to know and will intervene, because if there's any sort of blood loss or anything, the last thing you want to do is give the wrong drugs to that patient who are now on blood thinning. Hospital bleeps. They're becoming an aging technology. The same solution can manage the hospital bleep, but the nice thing here is it takes you beyond the bleep now and uses any telecoms device, including your own mobile, if, as you've seen with Andrew's demo earlier, sort of you've made that your preferred device for that number. The solution can also monitor essential supplies and equipment. So take a drugs fridge. I wonder how often a drugs fridge starts to break down, slowly goes above the recommended temperature, and therefore you have wastage. Well, with a thermostat connected to our alarm and response solution, when it reaches a certain temperature, that solution can then notify the relevant professional to then go and intervene and either move the drugs into another fridge that's operating or actually to fix the fridge. And this goes across lots of things. So I'm going to open up a big question here. Can the tools that we use today and that we've shown that we use in Unify to a great degree, could they even start to become a true clinical support tool? So we're going to ask Emma to switch screens again, and we're going to look at a new tool that's around that could actually start becoming a clinical support tool as time goes by.
Okay, thanks, Tony. So on the screen at the moment, again, it's another web browser application that we have, and this one is around social collaboration and an all-around conversation. Here you can see I have a list of conversations, and the one I've picked up is a weekly MDT meeting. Immediately I click into that, I open up the conversation, and I can see that on December the 3rd, 2014, at 11:01, Rob Keenan posted a link. That link could be to a patient's record, it could be to some online system somewhere. If I click on that link and I have access to pull whatever's at the other end of that link, then I will get to see it in this window. If I click on it and I don't have access, then obviously I will just get an error message. If I scroll down, we can see that Rob's posted another image of a table. If I click on that, I expand that table up, and it's got a lot of results in there. I can close that down, and I can then put in a comment to Rob. Again, if I put in Rob, I can say, please send this table to what happens is my chat comment, immediately gets appended to the post, and he can then automatically see that. Because I've used the @ symbol and Rob's name, okay, the system automatically knows that to notify Rob that I've actually posted something that's specifying his name and asking him to do something. As we go through this conversation, you can see that over a period of time, so you can imagine that a patient initially came in 2004, was treated, then came back some months later for something else, and now we're doing a chest x-ray. So here we've got a chest x-ray that's been annotated. So again, people have drawn in. We can see that I've actually been able to click on that on the iPhone. And again, you could use this sort of information for training purposes to get people to be able to spot something and be able to then socialize it. Again, the patient could have come in, giving Tony's example, with a road traffic accident, but had some sort of previous complaint that he was treated for, and again, we're collaborating that very quickly. You could see by the title, I've got a plus button here. This enables me to add people to this conversation. So in an example where we've got somebody in for a road traffic accident, but we realise that they have been recently treated for a stroke and have obviously on a course of a pretty aggressive blood thinning medication, I might want to consult with the clinician who was treating them. So if I get a name, I can now add that person to the conversation, and what happens is we now start to build a social group that is collaborating in real time with text and telephony about this patient. And what happens is we can go back at any time and then search on something. So I'm in this conversation, I'm looking for something particular, we'll call it a chest x-ray, okay? As soon as I fire that in, okay, it's now looking for the term chest x-ray, and it goes and finds in that conversation that particular keyword. So of course these can be medical terminology and drugs and all sorts of things that you can go and find that are specific to this patient, such as dosages that they may be on. The other thing I'll very quickly show you, anything that's attached to this conversation, and this may be the drug dosage or anything like that, I can find that just by clicking on details and looking at files. And now you could see, actually, we recorded a conversation between the specialist associated to this patient. We recorded that conversation for purposes of training or just for due diligence, and we can see that was recorded on a particular date. It was in September. Okay, we've also got another couple of documents there in June and again in December. So all of these things are bringing together into a conversation. Now, clearly, this won't impinge on the patient records, but these are actually a repudiated trail discussions that we are talking about in order to best adapt to this particular patient. And what we can do with this system is we could also enable the patient or the patient's family to be part of that conversation so that they get an image of that as well. So for instance, if we use the Birmingham Children's Hospital, it's an infant, okay, you've got very concerned parents, and they want to be part of it. Yeah, they want as much information as they can because obviously they're concerned for their loved one. So this is where this technology can really come to play. And what it does is, because it is run over a browser, you can run that on a host of technology. It doesn't have to be the latest and greatest. Again, it can be mobiles, but you're just being able to really enrich and immerse in a real-time incident that will evolve over time. So I'll now ask Emma to hand back to Tony for the final few slides.
Thank you, Andrew. So, as you've seen, the latest communication tools. So, sort of just to wrap up on what Andrew was saying, imagine this is sort of somebody that's suffering with depression or sort of cognitive therapy. This allows those conversations to be retained both by the patient as well. So the patient can go back and refresh themselves. And there's been plenty of studies that the more that a patient is sort of suffering from these types of illnesses can look and hear and listen to those conversations, the more it helps them along the way. So as we start wrapping up then, what we've shown you is that you can start being proactive in the way that you engage with your patients and your staff. You're going to get resolution at the first attempt because you're not going to waste time when they're not available. We've shown you sort of areas where you can actually utilize this to do post-care surveys and reminders. And all the way through, this provides plenty of monitoring and plenty of analysis to help you improve the organization. It helps to de-stress the engagement. Any of us that go to hospital for the wrong reason, i.e. we need something fixing, we need to be cured, it's stressful. There are plenty of studies that say if you can de-stress, then there are better outcomes. Many conditions will improve, not all, but many. Discharge times will reduce. Patient and staff experiences get better, and that drives greater efficiencies, which ultimately will please the accountants. So how does it help? Automation, but we don't dehumanize. The biggest win in healthcare is the human factor and the human caring element. So let's not take it out like some industries have done. You improve customer service. Are patients not your customers? Think about it. Improved management and patient data will then allow you to make better decisions about how to transform services and practices within your organization. So it becomes an ever-evolving change of cycle. And you start getting those budget efficiencies without the pain. It gives you a more flexible workplace, which means that you're going to utilize your estates better. It's going to provide better health and safety for home workers. Using that alerting system can also help those that sort of treat patients at home. It enables you to give more time back to caring for those professionals at the front line. And real people are always one step away. Don't hide them behind layers and layers of technology. Keep them close. And this technology allows them to get as close, if not closer, in many instances. And at that point, we're going to wrap it up and open the platform for questions.
Thank you, Tony and Andrew, for a very informative and enjoyable presentation. We will now begin the Q&A portion of the program. As a reminder, you can submit any questions you have by typing them into your control panel in the space labeled Enter a Question for Staff and clicking Send. Our presenters will attempt to answer as many questions as they can during the time we have for Q&A. The first question we have here is, what are the downfalls of this technology, especially automation and alerting?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. It's, what are the downfalls of this technology, especially automation and alerting?
So the biggest downfall that we've seen is sort of when too much technology is implemented, that the alerting and the automation of alerts becomes to a point where you get alert fatigue. So a strategy needs to be put in place. This is coming back to sort of something that Andrew was talking about earlier on. By getting and managing, so let the specialists, let the clinicians, the nurses, and whoever are going to receive those alerts, let them dictate which ones are important for them. It's like email. If you get too many emails, we tend to ignore them. So we miss the important ones. So the same happens with any of these automations. Automate and deliver what's important, and then leave the rest to the normal process, so that therefore it's by exception rather than by the norm. And that's what we found as being the biggest downside, is that typically organizations tend to sort of say, right, we're going to alert everybody to everything. And that's one of the worst things you can do.
Wonderful. Thank you. The next question we have here is, can this work on my current environment and equipment?
So we say yes. There are some precursors to that yes. The main one is that your sort of the equipment that you have, within reason, needs to be meet certain technology levels, such as it's SIP compliant. And so long as you do that, then sort of the solutions we've shown you can virtually all bolt onto those existing environments.
Great, thanks. The next audience question we have here is, how long does it take to implement, assuming the technology is in situ?
So once the platforms are in place, I'm going to quote Andrew here. Typically, we say 66 days. And the reason for that is that it takes approximately 66 days to break a habit. Now, that doesn't mean 66 days for the entire organization. What we recommend is that we pick a champion area, so an area that's very keen to adopt these technologies, and we put in that area first, and then let the organization roll out, because as people see the success and the benefits for one area, then they start coming on board, and it grows by osmosis then within the organization.
Wonderful, thank you. And our last question here today is, what areas of the hospital have you seen automated, and with what success?
Well, that's a fairly broad one. Sort of fairly generic ones typically tend to be around appointment booking. It used to be very much around sort of services such as a reminder of an appointment, but now sort of that interactive, now the EMRs and the appointmenting modules are becoming more sophisticated. It's much more an experience that we can expect that you see with other services such as hairdressing and sort of the eye tests and things like that, where you can actually go online either through a portal or through voice and actually change those appointments, be offered alternative dates and times if the original one's not suited. We've seen plenty of sort of replacements within the bleep environment. The alerting of specialists has been growing. The latest one that I've seen was around maternity and actually alerting midwives that sort of patients were being brought in for sort of alternative treatment, normally within the emergency or ER department, but sort of other departments as well. It's very broad. Most hospitals seem to all find unique things specific to themselves, and it is a case of having a look at what is important to you. But these types of alerting services does allow you to respond before the problem happens quite often, rather than after the event, when the response is obviously much more critical, whether it be patient care specific or whether it will be something to do with the infrastructure, such as we said earlier, a fridge starting to malfunction, or an air conditioning unit or similar.
Great, and it looks like we have another question that just came through, and that is, what are the measures taken for patient data protection?
So sort of within patient data protection, we comply with local regulations. So sort of for the US, it'll be working with the organization to ensure that everything is totally compliant with HIPAA and similar sort of regulations. So therefore, sort of as your organization, so with something like contact center, sort of we don't actually hold patient data in the system. So therefore, sort of, it depends on really what integration you do with the EMR or other patient data will depend on sort of what we have to do to ensure that we're fully compliant as we go through. It really is on a sort of as organization basis, because some places do not do any sort of integration, and some places have gone sort of the whole hop and done screen pop based on phone number, therefore data is held, so that therefore we have to make sure we're compliant.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have today for Q&A. I want to again thank our presenters for their excellent presentation and for all of you for participating today. We look forward to having you join us for future webinars. This concludes today's program. Have a wonderful day.